Hi, welcome to Ground Control Board Games. My name is Mark Shantos, and today we're starting a new series where I'm going to talk about my favorite games. Each of these videos is going to have this structure where it'll be called the Blank of Game series. So this one is the Timelessness of Cascadia, and I'm just going to sit down in front of a camera for a few minutes and try to convince you why I think one of my favorite games, Cascadia by Randy Flynn, is timeless. I think that it's important to just acknowledge the designers that came before us, especially as new designers. I think that we stand on the shoulder of giants. No game nowadays would exist without the framework built up by designers before us. So I wanted to get into kind of a healthy habit of turning on the camera and just like sharing what I love about certain games and why they made me so passionate and how they've affected me as a game designer. So I wanted to start off the series with one of my favorite games of all time, Cascadia. This game for me was the epitome of don't judge a book by its cover. I had kind of heard about it when it was kind of all the hotness coming out, and I saw the cover and I thought that it looked good. Beth Sabel obviously has beautiful art, but I'd seen some of the gameplay and I thought that it looked kind of bland, I guess. I thought that it looked a little boring, honestly. But we were at a game store and my wife saw the box cover and she loves Beth Sabel's art. And she said, like, can we get that game? That game looks awesome. So I was like, all right, twist my arm. So we picked it up and brought it home and tried it. And I instantly fell in love with it. And now it is easily the game that I've recommended to the most people. There are people that I've showed this game to that have instantly bought it. It's also the second most decorated game of all time in our collection, right after Dominion, in that it won my top games of all time bronze medal in 2022, my silver medal in 2023, and then for my wife, gold in 2023 and gold in 2024. So we really like this game in this household. So the game really only has three elements. It has tiles, animals, and pine cones. And on your turn, you're going to draft a set of a tile and an animal and then place them into your display in front of you. And if you place a animal on the certain keystone tiles, you're awarded with these pine cones, which you can spend to have a little bit more flexibility. So the pine cones allow you to either take mismatching pairs of tiles and animals, or they let you clear out the board of animals and get new animals that you can draft from. And it's almost always picking on the foxes when you do this. And one of my favorite things about the design of this game are that despite the fact that foxes seem to always clutter the market and there's always too many foxes and people don't want them, everyone also needs one or two, maybe three foxes in their board because they have the highest maximum point value per animal. They're just really, really hard to pull off. I also think that there's just so much beauty in how Randy Flynn and the Flat Out group designed this game, in how symmetrical it is. There's exactly 20 animals, the same number of each terrain type and tiles. And so much of the game is so symmetrical. And then it's all tied together with this asymmetrical scoring. And I think that as a designer, this is something that I've really had to learn, is that you don't need to make everything asymmetrical and everything crazy. It's actually a good thing to have parts of your game be symmetrical and be like so clean, very easy to understand, so that the parts that are asymmetrical can really sing and players can instantly understand the value of things when they see them. I think Cascadia would be way more confusing if foxes were worth a few more points, but there was way less of them or something like that. I think that it's just so nice for new players and old players that the base of this game has that symmetry. So as I mentioned, Cascadia is extremely easy to teach. You can get a game up and going in just 3 or 4 minutes. And once it is going, it's kind of a solitaire experience. You're drafting from the same pool, but you're mostly looking at what's in front of you. But also, despite the game having so much depth, there is kind of a relatively low cognitive load when it's not your turn, and even when it is your turn. So it makes it a really good, just kind of chill, talking game that you can kind of slowly play, or play at whatever pace the group wants, and you can kind of all relax and have a good time without being so cutthroat. My absolute favorite part about Cascadia, and I think that an aspect of game design that's extremely underrated, is the increasing decision space in the game. What I mean by that is that the first time that you place down a tile, you have 9 legal spaces that you could place that tile. There's probably going to be a pretty obvious one. And then the animal, whichever animal you pick and wherever you place it, you really can't go super wrong with your first few placements of animals because you can always kind of fix it later. So on your first turn, you had 9 places that you could place this tile. But on your second turn, now you have somewhere between 10 and 13 places that you can place this tile. So as the game goes, the decision space just grows and grows and grows. And what was a very simple puzzle that seemed very manageable has like completely just gotten out of hand. And there's just so many viable moves on every single turn, and it just melts your brain. But because it was so welcoming and so easy, new players can totally catch on. And by the end game, they have just as good of a chance of winning as a veteran player. And every time that I talk about increasing decision spaces, I always pick on Catan, but it really is my least favorite part about that game. The most important decision that you make the entire game is the first decision, which is where you put your 2 starting settlements. And so for a new player, it's just completely non-welcoming, overwhelming. And if you mess that up, then you're kind of stuck in the game for an hour and a half. You regret a decision that you made way back at the start of the game. So this increasing decision space kind of brings everybody to an equal footing, but at the same time, a veteran player still usually does win, despite the fact that all players are on equal grounds and do have an equal understanding of the game. And that's because this game has the best rules to depth ratio of any game that I've ever played. For such a simple game, I didn't realize that my first 5, 6, 7, 8 games, I would just be constantly learning new things and having new realizations on just like how to get like 1% better and 2% better. I think that it's almost a canon event when you teach players this game that the first game that they play, they're going to focus a little bit too hard on the animals and they'll do just as good as the veteran player in the animals. And then when it comes to scoring those habitat corridors, they realize that they're just way behind and got smoked. And so then in their second game, they focus a little bit more on making that a compromise. And then in your third game, you start to realize, oh, I should maybe be like leading with the corridors and animals should be like a secondary thought. And then in your fourth game, you start to think maybe I need to hang on to these pine cones a little bit more. And then you start to like look at the market and look at the board and see what's available. And there's just like so much depth, and the game kind of meets you where you're at. If you want to have a game like that where you think about every single little possibility, you can do that in this game, but also you can totally just chill and kind of just play loose and still have fun. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing for that. I think that this game does a really great job of rewarding players for being flexible in their plans. I think that's a big learning curve in this game, is that you have these grand plans and you're like hoping to see these things come out of the bag. And you really can't do that. If you want to be good, you have to be constantly flexible and constantly open to new opportunities. And your board's going to look completely different than how it looked in your head like halfway through the game. So it was kind of the desire to go down that rabbit hole and learn everything that I possibly could about this game that drove me to discover the solo mode. Another thing that drove me is that in 2023 was I had just started a desk job after college, and I'd started sitting in front of a computer for the entire day for the first time in my life. And so when I got home, I wanted to disconnect from my phone and disconnect from technology, even if it was just me. And so I discovered the solo mode of Cascadia and the solo mode of Hadrian's Wall. And that is definitely the reason that you see gold medal 2023 on this game and silver medal 2023 on this game, was because I spent so much time that year playing those solo modes. And the solo mode in Cascadia is absolutely brilliant. I think that it would be compelling enough to play a couple games just to kind of get better at the game if that's all it was. But the game comes with these achievements and these scenarios and achievement tracker progress board that kind of motivates you to keep trying. Yeah, not to brag, but I'm a forest study right now, so no big deal. So Cascadia was kind of this perfect, symmetrical, nice package, and then the expansion came out and it maybe lost a little bit of its elegance in the expansion if you play with the landmark tiles. I think that the expansion for Cascadia is not super necessary. And this is coming from a guy who's played 31 games now. So I never played Cascadia and thought, ooh, I want like something more. I want like another level to this. I think that what the expansion does is it makes you have to think a little bit more at the beginning. It loses kind of that increasing decision space aspect because at the beginning of the game you have to read like 10 more cards instead of just reading the base 5 variable scoring cards. So there's a lot more upfront thinking. And then also the landmark tiles just kind of add a little bit more of what kind of feels like already is in the game. I don't know. I think that it's fine. I'm really glad that it fits in the base box. And I personally am really glad that I got it because it allows Cascadia to go up to 6 players. And it also gives you more achievements and more scenarios. So, my favorite part about the expansion isn't actually the landmarks, like the big thing, the namesake of the expansion. It's just kind of allowing for more players and stuff like that. But we play with the landmarks sometimes. I just think that they're a little bit unnecessary. That does not take away at all that I think that Cascadia is an absolutely timeless game. I think that I'm going to be playing this game with my grandchildren. I'm going to be playing this game all the way into my retirement. It feels like a game that has been out for forever. It feels like a game that could have come out in the 90s or the early 2000s. It kind of like that Carcassonne easy vibes, except for those variable scoring cards, which kind of like rocket this game into the modern era. If aliens ever came to Earth and they wanted me to give them one game to represent modern board gaming, I would easily nominate Cascadia to represent what board games are today. So that's why I think that Cascadia is timeless. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you thought about this format and if there's anything that I can do to kind of improve this. But I generally just want this to be like a chill, me sit down in front of the camera and tell you why I love certain games. So, yeah, thanks.